This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe and welcome to our circle.
Hello, everybody. This is Patricia W. Fisher with Readers Entertainment Radio. It is February 11th, 2021, and for me, it is super rainy and overcast. Threats of some snow flurries here in Central Texas. Kind of crazy, I know, since we had some a few weeks ago. All I know is my blueberry plants are going to be super happy because they do love that cold weather. So I'm very much excited about that. And something else, if you don't know, it's International Day of Women and Girls in Science, but it's also National Inventors Day. So if you don't know the reasons that you have a really cool game to play on Family Game Night, it's because a woman created it way back in 1904, and it was originally called the Landlord's Game, but we call it Monopoly, and she had the patent made. There's also a woman who created the dishwasher in the 1800s, and then, of course, Hedy Lamarr did amazing things with radar. We have Grace Hopper, who invented computer software. We have, to mention Black History Month, we also have a woman who created a better home security system, Marie Van Britten Brown. We also have rock and roll. And if you don't know this, Sister Rosetta Tharpe was one of the first people that mixed gospel music with like a cool blues riff and traditional, and she just made it so cool. And there is a video of her, and it's like one of the very few. So if you get a chance, look it up. Her name is Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Super cool. And then all sorts of great inventions by women all over the place. So just do a quick search and look it up. And then if your girls really love science, encourage them to keep taking science classes, learning about science, because there's all sorts of cool stuff that they could do, including become a really cool writer, which is one of those ladies we're talking to today is DelSheree Gladden. She's a native of New Mexico. She's lived in Colorado, and she has 2 kids and 17 cousins close by where they live. She loves having the neighborhood kids over to play and loves having her house being the unofficial summer and after-school hangout spot. And when she's not writing, she's always out and about looking for cool stuff, and she makes these really cool bookmark buddies, which we'll talk about in a minute. She has 14 different projects and prints, and she has a plethora of characters to read about. So her most recent release is a young adult retelling of Jane Austen's Persuasion called What Had to Be Done, and is out now. And you can find her at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and Amazon. Welcome to the show, DelSheree Gladden. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. So I mentioned the science stuff because I was going through your Instagram page and I saw some amazingly cool books that I love. And I was a big Nancy Drew reader as a kid too, but you having these books on your page were things like from H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and Tolkien and all that stuff. Were those your go-to books, or were those things that you just kind of organically discovered in the library?
It was probably, I always enjoyed reading fantasy growing up. And as I got a little older, kind of into the middle school, high school age, where I could kind of understand some of those more complex books, was when I got more into like H.G. Wells. And 1984 was one of the first classic books that I read that I was really just like, wow, this is amazing. And
right.
It really made me start thinking about things and, what societies could be like if it took like a drastically different turn. And so I kind of got into reading more of those types of books that are like classics, but they're not really ones that you get told to read in school. And I really wish those were the books that more kids were reading in school. Personally, I had to read Great Expectations as a freshman. I didn't understand the majority of it at that age.
Right.
I did not enjoy it. I was just like, oh my gosh, I've got to get through this so I can write a paper about it. And, there's so many, like, really neat classic books that you can learn a lot from, even in those middle school, high school years, that a lot of kids don't get exposed to.
Right, because I think that the big thing is people are worried that it's going to be too convoluted or complicated. And what I did when the kids were little, because I had these wonderful, not to be totally, funny about it, great expectations about them reading these classics, but I got the children's versions of them, and they aren't like the picture books. I mean, they're basically the core storyline watered down. You don't have all the details of it. There's a few different companies that have them, and you can find them pretty much anywhere. Some of them are free for Kindle downloads. But to have that kind of imagination and be thinking about, like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, or Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and all those kind of things. It's this whole taking yourself out of this where you are and just kind of escape for a little while. And I think that is so important to foster that imagination, especially when we're trying to figure out where we fit a lot of times at that, in that middle grade into high school age ranges. And we're reading books like you mentioned Great Expectations. My freshman year, I read Romeo and Juliet, Death Be Not Proud, Tale of Two Cities, Brave New World. I mean, honestly, my mom was like, another book about death? Oh my! Why are they making you read all these books about death? Like, you're all hormonal enough. You're like, why? Or read something fun. I think people are, at the schools I get what they're trying to do, but then again, it's like it's okay to read something amazing like, a giant squid under the sea attacking a submarine. Why not?
Yeah. And there's so much to learn from those, even, if someone's not interested in writing per se or isn't a big reader, just as that you get from around the world, different concepts. I read like the Island of Dr. Moreau recently, and it was interesting, this whole concept of vivisection, of turning humans into something else through like introducing blood from other creatures and like it, in today's world with the science that we have, it's like, well, that's not how that would work. Like,
right.
You can't just like mix some blood and expect to like turn into, a peacock or whatever. But like it was legitimately this field of science that was going on around that time that people were very like worked up about and had strong opinions on, which kind of seems a little almost like silly now, because you're just like, well, that's not even like scientifically possible what they're talking about. Right. But they feared that it was. And that's where some of those concepts from Island of Dr. Moreau came from, was actual issues that were going on in that time period. And, and he turns it into this outlandish kind of fictional story. But at the same time, it really makes you stop and think, like, well, what are the boundaries of society, of science? What makes people human and separates them from animals? Like, it gets all these thoughts going, even though, as science progressed, it was like, well, obviously, that's not really, you can't just reshape a living organism into something else by, cutting pieces and reorganizing things. But the concepts that are there are so intriguing and like really make people think. And it's interesting to see how my kids, who are both in high school right now, the books that they're being asked to read, and they're either like popular mass fiction, and then like paired with a classic. Right. But it's like stuff that I'm like, well, why are you reading that? Why aren't you reading something that gets you thinking a little bit more? And, like, it's nice that they give them both options. But, yeah, sometimes the choices of the required reading, I'm just like, well, that was an interesting choice. Why not Brave New World or, something?
Right.
That
Well,
has
I
a
think
little
too
bit
that
more
it's
discussion.
also it's a multi-leveled instruction because we could read East of Eden by Steinbeck or Grapes of Wrath, and there's things going on at that time that he based it on. You always have the Dust Bowl and all these people are leaving, and I mean it's like if you don't understand that part of history, the book's going to be like, this is the most boring thing ever. What's wrong with these people? So it's I think it's a multi-level thing. I know that there's some schools that will, like the teachers coordinate the lessons. So, we're going to talk about the Da Vinci, and then in the history class we're going to talk about the Renaissance and why all this is important. And then then the English teacher's like, okay, well then I can pick these books that were going on at that time, and then it's just like it all complements, so it all makes more sense. And it's
really cool,
I guess it's right, and so it's absorbed more. So it's not like you're going to talk about Texas history here, but then you're reading about Martin Luther King, which you should read. You should know these things. In Texas, I feel like you should know because Texas is so much about its history, and you at least want to know what people are talking about. And, of course, Martin Luther King because of his civil rights movement and the people around him, the people he worked with, even the people he admired to help him with that. And so it should be an all-inclusive, and, the way a lot of it's set up is so choppy. So I think that sometimes why kids are disinterested. Now I'm very much armchair quarterbacking this. So, but I'd never seen, my nephew went to a school that did that, and it's like they would complement. They'd all get together and coordinate. And I was like, man, I have never heard about that before, but that just sounds like it would be really cool.
Really beneficial to the student.
Right.
Really
so
neat.
It's like, we just talked about that in that other class. It's like, how many times do you have to hear something to remember it? I think it's like 5 or 7.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the retention is, but it sounds like a really cool format. So,
Yeah, it is. Cool.
Yeah. So when I was going to school, I never saw any of the girls reading Tolkien. Were you reading Tolkien in middle school, or was this something you found in high school or beyond, or when did you find him?
Yeah, I read The Hobbit in high school, and I think I started reading like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and at that point I was kind of like, this is a little more challenging, and The Hobbit has a lot more adventure and it's fun, and then you go to the Lord of the Rings and you're like, where's the exciting part? It's a little slower, and I think I didn't have as much patience then as a reader. So I didn't go back and read the Lord of the Rings trilogy until I was older. But I was, gobbling up all kinds of fantasy at that time, like basically anything I could find at the library. I'd, get stacks of books every time we went and just burn through them in a couple of weeks, and we'd be back at the library again. Yeah,
that summer reading program where you could like fill your page and see how many books you could read in a summer. Oh yeah. I think we had that was like I think we went at least twice a week sometimes. I think part of it was because we were in Houston, it was so stinking hot, and so it's like just go to the library and sit in the cool. And I think my mom could actually like sit and read something without us, saying something like needing something really super important, I'm sure. But we loved it. Yeah. I think I read every book, and it doesn't say much because I think there's like 4 books about anything crypto, what is the word? Cryptobiology. So anything about Bigfoot and Loch Ness and Yeti, and it's just like the same books over and over. And I was like, I'm sure I'll find something. There's a clue in here somewhere. But as of yet, I have not discovered what those are. A little sad about that. But with all this reading, when did you decide? I mean, what was the catalyst that made you want to write a book?
You know, it was really just, I think I kind of hit a point where our library at the time wasn't that big, and it was
Okay.
like I ran out of stuff to read.
Oh.
And it was like, all right, well, I'm going to, take all the cool things that I like from these series, and I'm going to make my own thing. And, of course, those first few tries are rambling messes.
Right.
Probably a lot of too much borrowing from things I had read.
Yeah, I'm going to cram everything I love in one story.
Else.
It's like,
yeah, right. It's just like a mess, and you look back on it, and you're like, oh my gosh, so crazy. But yeah, it was just like, well, if I love these types of books so much, and I'm kind of finished all the series at the library, I was like, like now I'm going to try write my own, and
okay.
it was just starting off with some of those more like fantasy elements of things that like I was learning about in school that I thought were really interesting. The first book I published and actually like completed was about the Aztec mythology and put into a more modern time where the character Era keeps having these dreams, these progressive dreams, and of a young woman on her way up the temple to be sacrificed. And so she's kind of trying to figure out what these dreams mean and learning about the culture which she is like descended from. And it was something that we had been covering in, I think it was my freshman history class.
Okay.
And just something about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. I want to learn more about it. And, dug out some books from the library and started the story. And the first draft was just written in this like little spiral notebook that I carried around for weeks. And, and that ended up going through like 3 probably complete rewrites. And over like 10 years in between other stuff of, getting married, having kids, going back and forth to it before it was finally like, okay, like this is a real comprehensive, complete story now.
Yeah.
It was a long process for that first book.
Yeah, it is. And then I think that the hardest book is actually the second, because you've written the first book. Nobody knows you're around. Nobody knows you exist, really, in big, grand scale. Mm-hmm. You get that first book written, you get a few good reviews, and you're like, oh, and then people are like, so where's the next one? And it's like, because you have to really speed it up for that second book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just adds that, like, pressure on what you're doing. Like, it's got to be just as good or better, and that always is something that gets me, especially like finishing a series, that last book in the series. I'm like, I've got to wrap everything up. I don't want to, disappoint with the ending. That's always the hardest book for me to write, is the last book in anything. Just, I hate reading something or watching a movie and finishing it and just being like, like what? That's how it's finished.
Wait, what about those other 4 minor things that they never finished?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to write a series like Lost, where you're just like, what the heck just happened here?
I invested 4 years and this is where we are? No. Not okay. This is not okay. So what was what was the name of your first series?
This is the Escaping Fate series, and it was originally just meant to be one book. It was kind of like, I finally finished something. Here we go. Now I'm moving on.
Right.
And I ended up going back and doing a second book and adding to the series. And I have a third book planned, but I have not gotten to it yet. It's kind of one that's on the back burner. It's like, when I run out of other stuff to do, I'll go back to that one.
Right. Well, I mean, you have a lot of stuff in progress. And, and you have a ton of projects. How do you juggle the mindset for each one? I mean, do you write, each book separately? Do you say, okay, in the morning I'm going to write about this, in the afternoon I'm going to write about this? How does that work for you?
I usually will kind of pick whichever one, like, I'm feeling most in the right headspace for, and I'll work on that project until I get stuck or distracted, or until I hit a point where I'm just like, I need a break from this. Like, I'm not in that good frame of mind anymore. And then I'll switch to a different project and work on that till I hit that same point.
Okay.
So I kind of just bounce between projects, whichever one is like making the most sense and speaking to me the most in that moment, and then just kind of move between them. And usually by the time back to a project, that like subconscious mind or whatever is going on there has kind of worked through whatever stopped me in the first place, and then I can get back into it and make some more progress. And it's probably not the most efficient way to work through projects.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their methods. Yeah, your methodology. How many books do you write a year?
Well, I used to write more. I haven't written as much in the last couple of years because I went back to work almost full time, and just things have been crazy. I used to be able to do like 4 to 5 books a year.
Okay.
In the last few years, it's been more like 1 or 2.
Okay.
It's been slow going, and I'm working on my master's degree right now, so that's kind of taken up a lot of extra time.
And headspace, I'm sure.
Yeah, kind of just putting things on the back burner to get through that, and then I'll have a little more time eventually.
Right. How long do you have left for your master's?
I should be done in December.
Oh, wonderful.
1 more year. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just a step forward every day. Just keep taking those steps. So tell me about your newest release, your most recent release. What had to be done?
Yeah, so this is it's an Austen retelling, which is not something I would normally do. It's kind of outside of my normal wheelhouse of writing. But it was one that I think it was a book club with my sister-in-laws that we had read Pride and Prejudice, and then I made everybody read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies afterwards, which I don't think everybody liked, but it was a funny comparison.
Right?
To read back to back. But I actually enjoyed both versions, and it was like, I really hadn't ever read any Jane Austen, surprisingly enough. So I was like, well, let me see what else she wrote that I am missing out on. And I ended up picking up a copy of Persuasion, and I enjoyed that one even more than Pride and Prejudice. I really liked just the concept of the story of having made some mistake, earlier in your life, and then it just kind of continues to haunt you. And always coming up in your thoughts, thinking like, what could I have done differently? What would I do, if I was in that situation again? And it was one that just kind of clicked with me. That it was like, this is something that's still very relevant today. Yeah. And what would that look like if I put it in a more modern setting? And it just made more sense to me at the time to put that in with teenage characters who often, do something in the moment and then later look back on it and just be like, oh my gosh, like, what was I doing?
Right.
Not that adults don't do that too, but, I think that feels a lot more, I guess, just big when you're a teenager. And so I put it in a YA setting. Yeah, it just seems like every little thing's the end of the world at that age. And so I, put everybody, those things, character concepts into a modern setting set in New Mexico, and just this girl, dealing with the loss of her mom, and her dad kind of just falls apart and checks out a little bit after their mom dies, and which is part of what leads to her making this decision that causes her to lose her best friend. And then a few years later, when she is confronted with him again, trying to just muddle through that whole experience, like, how do I handle this? Like, I don't know what to do. Trying to rely on her friends, trying to make those amends without actually having to, get involved in the confrontation that it's going to take to really explain things. Just kind of all those tactics that we all experience of wanting to fix something but not knowing how and making a mess of it. Until finally things, kind of come together and just like, okay, like, we got to work this out because I just can't, I can't keep dealing with this. I can't live with it anymore. And, so it's just kind of that process of working through those challenging life moments that I think all of us face and mess up probably a lot of the time until you can finally just understand what the other person went through and how to come to terms with that and make those amends.
Yeah, it's definitely a process.
Fun one to work through. But yeah, it was challenging at times because it was, a lot different. And in some ways I stayed close to the key points of persuasion, and then in others, I diverged off whenever just it felt like that was the story I needed to go. Right.
Well, I think too that we all look back and go, gosh, if I could go back and tell my 12-year-old self or 15-year-old self or 20-year-old self or whatever age you'd want to pick, these things. And my husband and I were talking about that the other day. It was one of those, hey, if you could go back, and it's kind of just filling the space conversations. And I said, I don't know if I would have listened, because I remember me very well at that age. And I'm like, I don't know, and it maybe, or I may have thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, what if I did this instead? It's like, no, that's what I'm saying. Don't do that. That's just as dumb. So, but yeah, I think everything's so emotionally charged for multi-layered reasons at that age. And yeah, to try and make that decision and navigate really heavy emotions is hard. And let's say a kid is really good at it. Are they able to connect with kids their age who are really not? It's that balance too.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. So it's a really awkward age. It's a great age, but it's an awkward age. It is. Even the kids who really seem to have it together, there are definitely days that they just fall apart. And I've seen my older two do that, and everything's overwhelming, and they just fall apart. And I just have to sit there and just nod, because sometimes it's that they just need the decompression of it all. And then they're better.
Get everything out.
Yeah. Because I can handle it all, because I'm mature and I can handle everything, and and it's like, but you're not. And that's okay.
Yeah. You will get there at some point.
Yeah. But I think as parents, we have to remember that was us years ago. And so we have to be that mindful of, okay, yeah, I did this. So I've got to just remember that it's just listening sometimes and breathing through it. Sometimes I add something to my coffee while they decompress. I won't lie. Because it's just like, I'm just going to nod and let them just vent about everything. Yeah. So yeah, it would be kind of a harder time to write about, especially with persuasion, and you're trying to fix something and setting it there. So yeah, I could see it being hard. But also, I think when we're trying to write these flawed characters, it's almost that challenge of not making them fix things too quickly. Like, you have to drag them through the mud for a while.
Yeah.
And So how long do you drag them through the mud? That's the question, I guess.
Exactly. And that was a challenge in writing this one, was like, not letting things resolve too easily, but not taking it to the level of it just being like, okay, and now what? Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what kind of helped me settle on that right balance was just trying to get, the main character, Anna, to get to the point where she could put herself in his shoes
Mm-hmm.
and understand, like, why it hurt him as much as it did, and also to understand herself. Give a little bit of forgiveness to herself of, what she was dealing with at the time. Her mom had just died. Her dad was kind of losing it. Her older sister is kind of a terror and pressured her into kind of abandoning this friend. And she really had to come to that point of being like, okay, I'm not this like horrible, vile person.
Mm-hmm.
I made a mistake, but I can do my best to fix it. And then she had to learn how to like let go of that herself before she could really ask him to forgive her and to start moving forward. So it was that dual understanding for her, of understanding what pain she had caused him more fully,
Mm-hmm.
and then understanding herself and being able to accept, like, yeah, it was maybe a bad decision, but it wasn't like out of meanness or with the purpose of being cruel.
Right.
And that's a hard thing, especially at that age, to really start to understand, yourself and other people and that effect that you have on other people.
Sure.
When you're a teenager, you're so inwardly focused. Everything's about you. You're the center of the universe. And coming to that realization that you're not the end all be all.
Yeah.
You've got to step outside of yourself. That's a tough place to get to.
It is, and it's that self-accountability too. It's and we have all seen it with ourselves and with our kids. It's that I stole the cookies, but so and so said it was okay. It's like, no, your choice was to steal it, so own that choice. And that's that's hard. There's plenty of adults that won't even do it. So, and I'll tell my kids, it's like, I can show you examples right now on TV and everything else about people not taking accountability for stuff, and I don't want that to be you. They made a choice. You make a choice, so you own what you do, and that is, definitely in high school, and I'd say anywhere from like age, from whenever puberty hits you to 25, even.
Yeah.
It's that adjustment
great
period.
Thing about, well, and some of the things that I love about writing and just fiction in general, books or movies, is that you can experience some of those difficult interactions and see how they play out and learn from them without it having to be you. Doing all, the going through that hard process. You can, and sometimes you do just have to go through it yourself, but the more perspectives you can get, especially in those like early formative years, I think the better compassion and empathy and understanding you can develop over time. So, maybe you're not making all of those same mistakes or getting into all of those crazy situations. You can, just learn a little bit more about the world and about people through these fictional stories. And, I think it really does just broaden your experience in thinking. And I think that's just a really neat experience to have, whether it's through reading or writing or, making movies or, any of those creative pursuits. It's just gaining that broader perspective of reality and of life. And that's something that has always drawn me to reading and writing, is just learning more about the world and about the people in it.
Right. And the escapism, I think, sometimes also gives us a moment to step back and say, okay, so I'm just going to, whatever it is, I'm, going to watch this movie. And it's like if you took a Pixar movie, but now I know when I go to Pixar movies, I'm going to learn something ultimately anyway, and I'm going to cry at least 3 times. But I mean, it's the beauty of the storytelling. And so, yes, it's animated, and yes, they do all this crazy stuff, and it's fun, but it's telling you something. And so through the escapism, you can step back and say, oh, wow. And so for those particular movies, I know I come back feeling almost revived, I guess. And it just, some hit you more than others, but I think the storytelling can definitely give us that different perspective in a way that we don't feel like we're being lectured. It's almost like it just kind of seeps in through our pores. And we're like, oh, okay. Little osmosis going on. That
dawning realization of certain things. And I think just humans in general, like, we learn better that way than just being like, well, this is how it is, learn this, memorize this, tuck it away somewhere. And it's like, oh, random fact, or yeah, sure, I'll, store it somewhere. But when you
I'll get right on that.
Connect with something, I think those like emotional connections you make, those stick with you, whether it's, actual real life experiences or that connection that you have with a character or a piece of music or a piece of art, that sticks with you because it's an experience that you had rather than just something you were told.
Yes. Yeah. It's just fun to see, and it's also fun to see, and I'm sure you've had it, which characters have people connected with the most, like, and that surprised you?
I think one of the ones in one of my series, that Someone Wicked This Way Comes, it's 3 siblings who all kind of have these weird powers and, like, emotional vampirism, for lack of a better word. When other people are suffering, like, they have these reactions to it they don't understand. And the oldest sibling basically was driven mad by these abilities and kind of driven away from his family and just kind of broke at some point. And he was a really interesting character to write, but a lot of readers really responded to him too. And he was kind of in the first book, like, just more like this part of their backstory, the 2 younger siblings. And as that series went on, he became more and more of a part of it, and his character became, like, really integral to the story, which I wasn't expecting either. He just kind of worked his way in there as I was writing. But a lot of readers did. They really connected with him, of just like that breaking point that we reach sometime of just like, it is too much. I can't deal with any of this. Something just snaps and you shut down, and it's just like, nope, I'm done.
Yep, I'm done.
And
That's it.
This like, mental and emotional break where he just could not deal with what he was going through anymore. And then watching him try to come back from that break and help the rest of his family. It was this, I think, transformation that people really connected with that surprised me, how much people enjoyed him and looked forward to his chapters. And I think it was just something on an emotional level that I guess a lot of readers were just like, like, I've been there, or I've been close to that point, or they've been through that with someone else that they're close with, that I guess, really just struck a chord with readers more than I had anticipated, which was really cool to see.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's so cool to see a reader come up to you and go, oh my gosh, I so love this particular character you wrote because, and they have all this in there. And it makes a difference for them because it's almost like I see you. They feel like somebody saw what they've been through in a validation in a way. So good for you. That's amazing. And I'm sure they were hoping for his healing as well, is what a lot of the input was. Yeah.
Yeah. And
cool.
That was when, especially with him like kind of coming back, I didn't really know how that was going to happen until writing that last book in the series. And it was just one of those where I'd originally had a whole different concept for how that series was going to end. And with that character, Oscar, becoming such a big part of it, completely rerouted how that series all came together at the end. And it was one that I was like, ooh, like this is not where this was supposed to have gone. I don't know how people are going to react to this. Yeah. And it was one that the feedback I got on it was just like, yeah, like that was exactly what people were wanting and hoping for, which was really validating because, like, man, this was really kind of going off the rails from the original plan.
Yeah.
But it was where it needed to go, and people really, like, responded to that.
I love it. Yeah, sometimes those characters will pretty much just tell you what they want, and we just have to keep writing. It's like, okay, take this down. This is what I'll be doing in this chapter.
Yeah, like, okay, fine.
Oh, fine, hold on. Yeah, and it's funny because it's great to talk with other writers and say things like that, because I've said that to people who aren't writers or who don't do some sort of creative outlet like that. And they look at you like, or should we call someone? Because like your characters are saying what now? Yeah. So it's like, I swear, it's just all normal stuff. I promise.
Yeah, just part of the process.
I promise you it is part of the process. Well, thank you so much for being here today. This was wonderful.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. And so when will you have your next book out, you think?
I'm hoping next month. I had planned to have the second part of Memory's Edge done and ready to go by the beginning of February, and my master's classes just took up too much time, and I just couldn't really get anything done on it over the last couple of months. So I'm hoping I can get like the last 4 chapters written this month, send it out to editing, and have it up for readers by March or mid-March, maybe at the latest. But
I love it.
Trying to get that
one
finished
I will be watching
up and off my plate.
I love it. Well, I will be watching that, and I will be connecting back with you again later this year to see how you're doing, and then I would love to have you come back.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to.
Absolutely. So for everyone who's been listening, this is Patricia W. Fisher, and I've been talking with DelSheree Gladden. All her books are available online now. Her most recent one is What Had to Be Done. You can also find her at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and Amazon. And if you would, go to her Instagram page and look up her cute little bookmark buddies that will help you keep your pages in your print or hardback books. They are super cute. So give her a shout. And like I said, all the links are in the write-up of the show, as well as the link for her latest release. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And this is Patricia W. Fisher with Readers Entertainment Radio. Please keep on reading, everybody, and stay warm.
This show brought to you by Circle of Seven Productions, www.cosproductions.com. Please be sure to subscribe, and welcome to our circle.